I'm going to conclude this presentation of my father's personality by talking a bit about his ideology, which is, I think, Tea Party conservatism. It's an ideology that really fits him because, well, it's all about hating other people, hating blacks, for example, hating homosexuals, and about getting rich without any sort of impediment, including, I guess, moral impediments. So, to give an example of how he hated blacks, he once told me that I should never come home with a black girl. I'm tempted to use the word that he used, but it would be very rude towards anyone watching who is black. And he also wanted me to hate gypsies. He was proud, actually. At one point I told the girl that I wouldn't play with her because I didn't like her nose, and I was just saying that because I wanted to point out how I wouldn't play with her for any reason whatsoever. She had been rather rude to me. Basically, she once tossed a big paper ball at me, and I didn't like her at all, so I just said something to that effect. And my father, when he heard that, was really proud of it, because he said, yeah, that's exactly something that my son would say, because he wanted me to hate people who had a nose that looked like hers. She actually looked a bit gypsy like herself, but that wasn't the point of why I disliked her. It was because of the ball throwing. Anyway, he even told me that certain gypsies that I knew were subhuman, and I honestly can find reason to dislike a lot of gypsies because of specifically their culture. There's this culture in Romania that can be described by the music genre manele, which involves praising your ability to succeed in the world by conning other people, by being smart and suckering various people. I'm using quotes here, of course, and importantly by performing various shady dealings. And then, once you get rich, if you are a true adherent to the culture, you have to make your enemies envy you for that, so you naturally have to get a lot of women around you to look good because of them. So it's completely about narcissism and about being a scumbag, basically. I can see how you'd hate the people who adhere to that ideology, but to hate gypsies because they're gypsy just seems stupid to me. I have met a lot of good gypsies myself, and when I told him, my father, that I didn't believe these people were subhuman, he just felt upset with me. I think he was also an adherent to the idea that people have the right to get rich without having to give anything to taxes, and they have the right to make their way to the top through whatever means. To give an example, he saw the way Bill Gates's monopoly was attacked in the 1990s. It was about a court case over how Windows Explorer and Microsoft Windows were shipped in the same package and sold together. So it was basically an effort to break his trust, his monopoly. My father was really upset with that. He felt that Bill Gates had the right to maintain a monopoly, and he really admired Bill Gates, even though this person had obtained his wealth by screwing over his colleagues at IBM, if I understand correctly. My father really loved the idea of aristocracy. Basically, he loved the idea of hierarchies, and he wanted to be at the top always. So he read the Dune novels, and he loved them. Now, the Dune novels, for anyone who doesn't know about them, are about this noble family that ends up leading the natives of a particular family to oust the foreign rulers of that family. The noble family I'm talking about is itself foreign. So this book is, I think, about how Afghanistan was taken over from the Russians, but it's placed in a sci-fi context. And my father really admired this series because it was all about noblemen being looked up to as pretty much as gods by a native population. He just he loved the idea of being at the top of hierarchies, as I said, and that involved him placing his own hierarchy in the family. And the way he did this, for example, was by giving us things in a certain order. My father owned a computer back in 1994 that eventually he upgraded, and he gave us children, my brother and I, the parts, as in he gave us a second computer. And following that, as more upgrades came, I got the old computer and my brother got a new one. So essentially, whenever upgrades came, I would be getting the upgrade from my brother would be getting the upgrade from my father's computer, and my father would get a new upgrade. It was the way he established a hierarchy among us. And I personally didn't feel bothered about having the weakest computer, so to speak, because I didn't need to use it for a lot of things, but it bothered me that he really set it out for it to actually be a hierarchy. And he did this sort of thing a lot. For example, at one point, to show my mother how contemptible he was of her, he decided he would say goodbye to us all, but he started by saying goodbye to me, then to the largest dog we had, then to the smaller dog, and finally to my mother, to show her that she was inferior to the dogs in his perception. And he laughed and smiled when he did that. I thought it was disgusting. So he also really loved the idea of removing any sort of duties on people who wanted to get rich. For example, he really wished that Romania would become an offshore tax haven, and despised the idea of ever having to pay taxes. He, I guess, didn't like the idea of ever having to do anything for other people. And when Iraq was conquered by America back in 2003, he was really happy about that. He didn't care about the fact that basically the entire oil industry would be taken over, or the fact that abuses would emerge as a consequence, abuses by American soldiers, as was the case at Abu Ghraib and various other places. He just was happy because people were going to get oppressed. People weren't his own people, so that's really his ideology. Well, I think I gave a fairly good description of it. In the last video about my father specifically, about what he did, I'm going to go over into his personality again and just show how this personality led to all the behaviors I described so far. Thanks for watching this.